All right, guys, let's have a look at some of the top performers in the NBA G League at the moment. It gives us a bit of an idea of players again who may be called up to their team via two-way contracts that they're already signed to, or maybe signed to later in the season. We saw guys like Ty Wallace have big success last season doing that. CJ Williams, another guy for the Clippers that was doing that, or players who might sign themselves or find themselves signed to 10-day deals or rest of season deals with second-year non-guarantees, able to put up some numbers for injury-riddled teams, tanking teams, all that sort of stuff. It is interesting for Dynasty League as well to find some of these guys and see who is putting up the numbers that is warranting our attention. So let's have a look at some of the performances. Yeah, this is the stats as of Wednesday in the G League. So we're about 14, 15 games in for a lot of these teams. I boiled it all down to their fantasy rankings and where they sit if it was done like a regular NBA fantasy league, 8 category value for all these guys, across those categories where their strengths and all that sort of stuff. All that sort of stuff lies. The number one fantasy player in the G League at the moment is a guy who has been called up by the Toronto Raptors, and that's Chris Boucher, who's averaging a huge amount of blocks in the G League, 4.8 blocks, but also almost 30 points per game. We've seen he was with the Warriors last season on a two-way, barely played there. I think he played one game maybe. And for the Raptors, he's come up in the wake of the Valanciunas injury and then the Serge Ibaka injury, and hasn't really been able to make much of an impact. And this team that he's on, the Raptors, they're obviously considerably deep. So he's not likely to have too much of an impact this season. It doesn't appear like, but he is putting up some massive G League numbers and has taken big steps forward from last season. And that could mean something for him heading into next season on a team that needs that developmental sort of big. Just skipping down to number 4, just to keep with the Raptors theme, their other two-way player, Jordan Lloyd, who is obviously my brother. He is the 4th ranked G League player over the over this season. He's averaging almost 24 points per game. He's shooting the 3-ball well, 35% there. He's dishing almost 5.5 assists, two steals per game. He's putting up good numbers, but again, finding a spot on this Raptors roster. And I just want to mention the Raptors quickly. They are, we talk about throwing in first-round picks or completely disregarding non-lottery picks. The Raptors team, we talk about all their young talent. It's based on Pascal Siakam, a pick in the 20s, Delon Wright, a pick in the 20s, Fred VanVleet, an undrafted player, OG Anunoby, the Jedi.
Hello there.
A pick in the 20s. These are all guys who were taken well outside the lottery, who have developed into the best young cores in the league. And now we look at the top of the G League fantasy rankings, and there's 2 Raptors guys there, both of their two-way guys. Now, Jordan Lloyd he showed out at the G League showcase. Lorenzo Brown and Malachi Richardson, those 2 guards who are currently ahead of him on the main roster. But I think he's a name to watch moving forward, not necessarily for this season, and there's a lot of depth here in Toronto, but taking over from Lorenzo Brown or Malachi Richardson or both is something that we could see from him last season. They did elevate Brown last season off their two-way deal onto the regular roster, and Lloyd could be one of those guys that's in for that. So while it's not one for this season necessarily, he is a name to watch out for as we move forward in the next couple of years. The second-ranked player in NBA G League fantasy is Yonte Maten. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce that name, but he is a two-way player for the Miami Heat, averaging 27 points in 33 minutes. He's shooting the ball extraordinarily well. He's averaging almost 11 rebounds, almost a steal, and almost 1.5 blocks, just putting up some really, really big numbers. He is second in the G League in PER behind Boucher, putting up some really, really huge numbers, and he's number 1 in win shares and number 1 in win shares per 48. So all his advanced numbers are there, but we already talk about the Heat and trying to find minutes for their guys on the roster. Where is he going to find that playing time or that opportunity? They're a team who we thought may be sliding towards the lottery. They've recovered now. They're going to be in the mix for one of those playoff spots. The Heat are excellent, much like the Raptors, and again, that's really illustrated at the top of these rankings. They're developing two-way guys, developing G League players, and turning them into NBA players. Hassan Whiteside, Tyler Johnson. We see those guys on the Miami Heat already. Second round picks like Joshie Richardson. They can develop these guys. Scooter Magruder, another G League guy who they can develop into rotation guys. And Maten is showing that ability at the moment and is a name to watch for future seasons when perhaps they get off of Kelly Olynyk or James Johnson is no longer there and Hassan Whiteside has gone. Some of those big men, Maten could come in and be an impact guy. He is one of those big men who's really efficient, 79% from the line as well. The number 3 guy is a player who isn't on a two-way contract. That's RJ Hunter of the Erie Bayhawks. Hunter is doing what he does. We've seen a few go rounds from RJ across the NBA so far in his career. He's hitting 3 threes a game at 36%, 22 points per game. He had stops in Houston, he had stops in Boston, in Chicago. Never really been able to catch on. I'm not sure he's ever really going to turn into something, but he is one of those guys that he could come in Marshawn Brooks style on a poor team, on a tanking team who needs wing depth, guard depth, and he could come in and have a little bit of a run of form. But he's putting up some strong numbers at the moment and generating steals and blocks as well. 2.2 steals and 1.1 blocks per game for RJ Hunter is obviously a little bit surprising given the type of player he is. I hope Matt Smith is listening to this because the number 5 ranked player in the G League is Terrence Jones. Yes, that is Terrence Jones, the hope of every fantasy player ever. Whenever he got signed to a team, whether it was the Pelicans, the Bucks, his time in Houston, if we're honest with him, or honest in general, he's not a good NBA player, but when he's out there putting up and playing minutes, he puts up big numbers. We've seen that time and time again. He just has absolutely no idea where to be on the court. Just think he was Marquise Chris before Marquise Chris was Marquise Chris. So Jones is putting up those numbers again in the G League. He is also playing for the Erie Bayhawks along with RJ Hunter. He's averaging 24 points per game at the moment. He's hitting 40% of his threes. He's getting his defensive numbers. He's getting big rebound numbers. Terrence Jones is someone that NBA teams, like many fantasy people, can't help but fall in love with. So he is absolutely a name to watch. Think of someone if the Cavs do trade Kevin Love, or Tristan Thompson goes and they look to bring someone up and Jerome Blossom game isn't cutting it. I can see Terrence Jones getting a run there, playing 24 minutes a night and being a top 200 guy in limited minutes. So he's a name to watch. Another NBA player or former NBA player we do have to talk about is John Jenkins, a guy who was billed as an elite three-point shooter, had some time in Atlanta, some time in Dallas, never really got things to really crack in the NBA, but he's putting up some good G League numbers at the moment for the Westchester Knicks. He's averaging over 3 threes a game on 46% shooting, 26 points per game. Again, another one of those guard-type players who he's struggled in his time in the NBA, but he did show some flashes back for the Hawks a couple of seasons ago in preseason. And honestly, between him and someone like RJ Hunter, Jenkins would be the guy that I would have a look at more in those deeper leagues. But he is an older player. He's 27 already, so not a huge amount of upside in Johnny Jenkins moving forward. The number 7 ranked player, Jordan McRae, a two-way guy for the Washington Wizards. Number 8 is Elise Johnson of the Indiana Pacers, a two-way guy as well. Given the Wizards' lack of guard depth, McRae's a guy that had some time with the Sixers, with the Cavs, put up some pretty okay numbers in a couple of games. The Wizards do lack significant guard depth. Chase and Randall, rugged Ronnie Baker are getting playing time there. So there's a very, very easy argument to make that McRae could come in if Wall gets injured, if Beal gets injured, and be a useful fantasy guy. So in deeper dynasties, out of this top 10, outside of probably Lloyd and Maten, I think McRae is, and in terms of contributions this season, I think McRae is probably almost the number 1 guy out of that group. Maybe I could throw Terrence Jones in there if he gets signed somewhere. But long term, I think McRae and Lloyd are pretty interesting. Elise Johnson, another interesting guy, an absolutely elite rebounder. Doesn't do much defensively, but is scoring well and is pulling in rebounds at a huge rate. Number 9 is the Clippers two-way guy, Jonathan Motley. If they do anything and get rid of, say, Marcin Gortat, then there is an opportunity for Motley, but there's already 3 centers on this team. Now, we saw John Motley. He's another great example. Last season, when he was a two-way guy with the Dallas Mavericks, he came in at the end of the season, played 40 minutes a night, and he was a must-roster guy for big stretches of time. He is an absolute stat stuffer, Motley. The situation in LA, it's a little bit crowded for him to be able to come in and put up these numbers, but say the Rooster, Danilo Gallinari, gets injured and there is an opening there at power forward, maybe they could play him alongside Montrezl Harrell or alongside Marcin Gortat or Boban in that situation, and if he gets big minutes, but the Clippers aren't really necessarily going to be in a tanking scenario, he would be someone that you can have a look at. So someone to keep an eye on with a real ability to put up numbers, and he's showing that again in the G League this season. The next player, the number 10 ranked overall guy in G League fantasy stats, is Darius Johnson Odom. He is a guy that we've seen. He's played some games with the Lakers. He went overseas for a bit. He is now back with the Iowa Wolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves G League affiliate. He's a wing, a guard player. He hits threes at a decent rate. He's generating steals. He's passing a little bit from the wing. He's putting up some okay numbers. He is an older guy though. We're talking 29 years of age. for Johnson Odom, so not someone that many teams are going to be wanting to bring in and develop. That's the top 10. Just go through the next 10 guys, just mentioning some names. Briante Weber, one of the best steals source guys. I think he is an NBA player. He can't do much offensively, but can be an absolutely elite steals guy. I think along the lines of Big Shaq Harrison.
Big Shaq.
That's what Weber can do. Number 11 is Theo Pinson, the Brooklyn Nets two-way guy. There is an opportunity there in Brooklyn. Maybe he takes some of Jared Dudley's minutes. Walt Lemon Jr. Is a Boston Celtics. He played for the Pelicans last season as a two-way guy. And now he's with the Celtics, so opportunities there. Unless they just get through that big run of injuries like last season, it's going to be a little bit harder for him to get those numbers. And another Celtics guy, their other two-way guy, PJ Dozier, is the 14th ranked player. Chinana Onwaku, 15th, a former Rockets player, not currently aligned to an NBA team at the moment. He had really, really strong college translation numbers. He would be an interesting guy to watch, and everyone's favorite, of course, Bruno Caboclo is the 16th ranked G League guy. I'm not totally giving up on Bruno. He's put up some pretty good G League numbers in the past as part of that Raptors development staff or the squad. One of the only Raptors guys they haven't been able to develop, actually, but he is now playing in the Houston system. He signed with the Rockets in the offseason. They cut him, but he's there with their G League affiliate. He's averaging almost 15 points, 2.5 blocks, over a steal, and he's actually hitting his threes at 43%. So I could see a team taking a flyer on someone like Caboclo, having a look at him, some team that's struggling. The Chicago Bulls, man, they need wing players. They should be having a look at someone like Caboclo, and he could come in, and I could see him in a 10-game role at the end of the season, putting up top 250 value. He'd be a name to watch. Tyler Davis at number 17, Oklahoma City Thunder, two-way guy. Drew Eubanks at number 18, the San Antonio Spurs two-way player. Raphael Putney, number 19, a guy that is been around the G League and putting up numbers for a long time. He is an older player, though. And the other one who I really want to mention is Willie Reed, number 20 in the G League fantasy rankings for the Salt Lake Stars. Had some domestic violence issues last season, really dominated at times with the Heat a couple of years ago, was with the Clippers, was traded to the Pistons and immediately cut over there. But he is a guy that when given an opportunity, he will put up numbers. There's no doubt about that. He is averaging 20 and 11 with 2 blocks in the G League on 67% shooting. He can be an absolute fantasy force, even at NBA level. It's just finding the right opportunity. So, yeah, out of those top 20 guys, the guys that I look at who can probably make an impact this season, I think Jordan McRae, Terrence Jones. I think that Briante Weber and Theo Pinson can. And I think Willie Reed can have impact this season with some outliers like perhaps Bruno Caboclo coming in. Jordan Lloyd, more of a guy we're looking at for seasons to come. Same with Elise Johnson. I think that he can be one of those longer-term players, maybe as a long-term replacement for Thad Young there for the Indiana Pacers. So that's my thoughts on some of the stuff going on in the G League. Hope you guys enjoyed it.